Welcome to the Ship Psychology channel. My name is Crystal Vogels and I will be your counsellor for today. So how can you use this idea of a crew inside your head? How can you use that on a day-to-day basis to make your life easier? Because that's what I designed the system to do. Wait, what? You created this? Yes. I designed the ship inside your head. That is the specific analogy and how to apply that, the different techniques that go with it. It is all based in existing psychological research. It's all based on existing systems and techniques. Throughout the years, I've been on the other end of the table as a patient suffering from depression, anxiety, and yes, there have been more than once times where I wanted to end my own life. My therapist tried, they honestly tried, but they couldn't grasp what exactly was going on. And the only one who did know was me. Of course, it was my head. Things were going on inside my head. I found out that actually my brains know damn well what's wrong with me. They know damn well why they're not communicating with each other. My crew knew exactly why. But sometimes they simply forgot to share that information with each other, and they didn't share it with me. So I wasn't consciously aware of it. But through the ship, through stories, because that's where it all started. Back as a teenager already, I noticed that when I was writing stories, and that was one of my lifelines, so I wrote tons of stories. And every time, any story I wrote, reading back later, I could always tell what was on my mind at the time, what issues I was struggling with, what my fears were. I found in these stories that the stories and the characters reflected what was going on inside my mind. So while I wasn't aware of it at the time, my brain knew. My brain knew, and my brain was trying to tell me that when I decided to use that intentionally. So to not just daydream stories for the fun of it, but to intentionally daydream, to find out what was going on, to tell stories, let my brain tell me stories that would show what was going on. That's when I found that in those stories, I could find elements, recurring elements, that would tell me something. And those recurring elements I could take. I could adjust the stories. I could steer the stories to change those elements. And those changes in the stories reflected back into my own life. And that is how I pieced myself together. And I came back from a very, very dark place. I was told 10 years ago that I would never fully recover from depression. I would remain chronically depressed for the rest of my life. I would likely remain suicidal the rest of my life, however long or short that would be. I was told to learn to live with the anxiety. And I had panic attacks every single day for hours on end. It was exhausting. I was exhausted. I was a physical and mental wreck. And I was told to live with that, to learn to live with that. And I said, expletive deleted, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to sit back and let that happen. If other people are able to live a full and fulfilling life, then so am I. So I decided to help myself. And that is how I developed the ship psychology method. And with that method, I've managed to recover from severe, we're talking 30 years of chronic anxiety, chronic depression, 20 plus years of being suicidal. And I recovered. And while I was sharing this story, because initially it was just for me, but as I was sharing this with friends, ever more numerous friends, I've got more and more friends along the way. Wait, that hadn't happened before. But as I shared my story, shared my ideas, my crew, with my friends and with more people, it turned out that it helped them as well. That's when I decided, okay, I'm going to get my license as a counselor. I'm going to help people, teach them this method. Okay, we have these three brains, and they function like a ship's crew to our body, which is the ship that, they're managing. So how does that allegory, how does that work? How can you use that to improve your mental health? Well, the thing is, our brains like recognizable images. And when psychologists talk about, your brain is doing this and your brain is doing that, now there's a distance there. It remains this abstract concept. And abstract concepts are purely the rational brain's domain. So you stay in this rational part, and the rational brain thinks, okay, so this brain does that, and that brain does that. And the other two brains are like, yeah, well, this has no bearing on us, whatever, you do you. And what happens, and many of my clients have said this, and I've experienced it myself as well, a lot of therapies are geared towards the rational brain. Of course, there's the cognitive behavioral therapy, which is intended to be purely rational, to minimize emotion. But the approach is always a bit rational. It always appeals and addresses our rational brain, but that's only one of the three. And many of the problems that we deal with, especially the ones that are deep-seated and difficult to change, are actually coming from the other two brains. So by not involving them, a lot of therapies fall flat. What ship psychology does is that it gives you the means to address all of your brains, and because it involves everyone, you get results much faster. If you want to change a habit, has nothing to do with rationality. Habits are not part of the rational brain. Habits are the deckhand and the first mate. Habits are the deckhand. Things you do in routine, things where the deckhand no longer needs instructions from the captain because the deckhand knows what they have to do. They know how this works. It always works the same way. They know they don't need instructions. Those are habits. Addictions, I'll go into that in another video, but addictions come from the first mate, not from the deckhand, not from the captain. So they don't come from the rational brain, do not come from the body. The physical dependency is a secondary result of the addiction, but it's the emotional drive behind that addiction that keeps it going, and that makes it so very hard to break. So if you want to quit smoking, if you want to quit drinking, change a habit that you don't like, or you want to adopt a habit that you do want to develop, you need to involve the first mate as well as the deckhand. But that part is often overlooked. So you need all three. And ship psychology is, and I've been in this system on different sides of the table for 25 years by now, this is the only system to improve your mental health that addresses all three brains on an equal level. And it's the only system that gets the three of them to talk together, to communicate. How it works exactly, that is what everything I'm going to be posting on this channel is about. I'm going to give you examples, I'm going to give you stories, I'm going to share different examples, different ways in which that works, in which you can use that. And I'm also going to give you practical tips, how you can use your ship, because it's not difficult to find your ship. Chances are that if you've been watching a couple of these videos, you already have in your mind's idea of a ship and a captain and a first mate and a deckhand. You already have some kind of image in your mind of what that might look like. And that's your first step to discovering your own ship. What do these images mean? What does it matter? Our subconscious talks to us through images. What we call brain farts by day or dreams at night, that is how our brains communicate. That's how they tell what is going on, what you're thinking about, really, what you're feeling. And if you remember your dreams, you know how disjointed and fleeting they can be. You tend to forget what you dreamt a couple of minutes after waking up, if you even remember at all. A lot of people say, I don't dream. Everyone dreams. Everyone dreams. That's another video. Everyone dreams, but you don't always remember it. By creating a set environment. So there's this ship at sea or on a river. You have the crew. And because these are, they'll work like focal points. And because they're focal points, you know that, oh, if the captain does something, that has to do with my rational brain. If my first mate does something, it has to do with my emotional brain. If my deckhand does something, it has to do with my instinct. So if anything remarkable happens, or if anything changes about the way they look, that tells you things. That makes you conscious of your subconscious thoughts. The ship helps you to literally look inside your own mind and become consciously aware of subconscious thoughts and feelings. And because you become consciously aware of them, you can change them, if that's what you want. Or if you can't change them yet, you can learn to accept them and embrace them. And rather than fighting yourself, you become more compassionate towards yourself. And that saves a lot of energy. That saves a lot of pain and heartache. And that is how the ship can help you. The beauty of the system is that it is always with you. You don't need special materials. You don't need a certain therapist on speed dial. The intent is that at the end of that journey, you don't need me, because you have all the tools in hand to build your mental health. When things get tough, to get your crew to pull together and to see you through that in the best possible way at the moments when you most need them to. And it will save you energy. It will help you feel better. It will help you feel more confident. The rest of your life, you have this. There will be setbacks. Of course there will be setbacks, because life isn't just one thing. There's always a freak storm that comes up. These things happen. These confrontations happen. And it's not a matter of avoiding those confrontations, but it's a matter of being able to pull together and see yourself through those situations. And that is the strength that ship gives you. That's what I'm going to teach you. That is what all this is about. And that's what I want to share with you. How you can tap into that inner strength that you have, because you have it. And right now you may not feel it, you may not see it, but it's there. And that is what this channel and my counseling practice and everything I live and say what that is about. That's it for today's video. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget, like and subscribe to the channel and you'll get more of this on a regular basis.